much about me, I love villains. Whether they're sinister, whether they're hilarious, or monstrous, villains are the best thing that ever happens in TV shows, movies, or comics and video games. Mainly because they're the main focus of what's going on in the game. Or whatever. And today, I'm going to be doing my top 13 video game villains. Why top 13? Because only the odd can become number one. Now, because this is a certain...
Wow. Can't believe how things have changed in 6 years and how shit that iPad camera was. Good thing I don't use that anymore for photos. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Game Hub. I'm your host, Gamer K, and we are finally in 2025. Happy New Year. It's a new year for geekdom. It's a new year, and a lot of new things are coming into the Game Hub. Thinking about doing a couple new segments, maybe obviously some new videos, get some old videos finished. And like that opening video, I've been doing this for 6 years. I can't believe how fucking amazing it is. Obviously, I'm not seeking notoriety or anything. This is just a fun little videos, fun little channel, just to voice my opinion about a whole bunch of geek stuff. And not only have I been doing it for 6 years, I've been doing it professionally, and I say professionally, I mean like knowing what I'm doing, for about 4 years now, if I'm counting correctly. And not only that, but this is my 300th video. Holy cow, I can't believe that I've done 300 videos now, excluding ones that I had to delete for certain reasons. I'm not getting into that. But man, 300 videos. And once again, like my opening video indicated, I decided, with all the games I've played, with all the amazing things I've done, with all these videos that have helped me improve how I do my critiques, I decided during the next future of my videos, I might revamp a bunch of old videos that I did somewhat okay, but I want to revamp them with fresh ideas, but similar takes on the whole video. So, for the Game Hub's 300 video, I'm doing my top 13 video game villains Redux. Basically, revamping the list. I added some new villains. I've kept some old villains. Some have moved up in the ladder. Some have gone down. Just as a fun throwback to one of my very first top 13s and how I've kind of evolved throughout the entire process. Obvious rules apply. One per series, what games I played, and how amazing the villains I find. Whether they're funny, whether they're menacing, whether they're hidden throughout the majority of the game, or if they're right in center causing a whole bunch of problems. All these villains deserve to be on my list because of how fun and how enjoyable I find them. So, let's get to it. This is Gamer K's top 13 video game villains Redux. And why top 13? Because here on the Game Hub, only the odd can be number one. Starting off this list with a real retro favorite of mine, way back from right before I entered college. I was so excited for this game. It was the last video game, one of the last games that ever released on the PS3, Puppeteer. And with it, in this magical world of theater and great humor and great gameplay. Oh, seriously, if anyone out there has any young kids and you have a PS3 and you want them to get into video games in a safe way, Puppeteer is a perfect game to play. And the entire thread of this whole game is with the amazing villain, the Moon Bear King. This guy is hilarious. Yes, I know that the whole game, that these characters are kind of actors on a magical stage putting on a performance, but that in no way takes away how great this villain is. He's just big menacing bear creature that is equally threatening and equally comical throughout the majority of the game. When he talks to his underlings, when he's by himself and he acts like a bumbling nit half the time, and it's just glorious. Like, the reason I love this villain is because he's a comical villain, but at the same time, it's, in a way, it doesn't take itself too seriously. I mean, it is a performance on a stage, so, but he always takes it to the extreme in the acting of the performance of the game, which, again, I love. I love that kind of goofy undertone that he has with his menacing moments. And again, his final boss fight, is a great one. It compensates everything that you've learned through the game, and again, at the end of it all, it's super goofy. He's hilarious. There's going to be a lot of villains like that on this list. So, good way to start off. The reason he's lower on the list is because it's basically a kind of good guy, got corrupted kind of way, and for some reason his good part came out of him and he was still the evil version. Yeah, there's a lot of hiccups in the lore of Puppeteer a little bit. But on the plus side, gave us a great comical villain to start off my list. And all that without one single fucking bear joke. Thank you. Hopefully, you don't get in the habit of making too many puns this year. Another from my old list, and still one of my favorite villains to date. Even though he's lower on the list, this villain from one of my very first detective-themed games, and by Quantic Dream, the people who gave us all of these, gave me one of my best villains. A villain of a murder mystery. A serial killer that is yet to be identified. In what quite possibly is one of my favorite games to date. Scott Shelby from Heavy Rain, a.k.a. the Origami Killer. Throughout the game, we play as 4 characters. Ethan. Yeah, Ethan. Ethan Mars, Madison Page, Norman Jayden, and of course the PI, the cop turned PI, Scott Shelby, as their stories entangle into the newest case of the Origami Killer. And never in a million years did I see the twist coming. And this is during those times when I actually played the game, and I didn't just Google who the killer was on YouTube like most people do nowadays, which takes the mystery out of it. Something that's ripped out of a great crime show episode into a full-length game is one of the best things this game ever did. And it was such a great twist. I mean, I personally didn't see it coming. Scott being a tormented soul after his twin brother died, after his father, who was a bit of a drunk, refused to save him. He became a police officer later on and then I don't know what happened, but we never find out what made Scott snap. I mean, he was a decorated officer, and he took a bunch of, basically his MO was to kidnap young boys and hold them hostage, and while sending their fathers a set of trials, all with origami animals representing each trial. And some of the fathers either refuse to do so or they fail the trials. All of this just to search for a father who's willing to do anything to save his son. Now, again, the twist was great. Watching the flashback, maybe I thought he got saved and maybe it was his brother who was the killer, like something like that. But I never thought it was they were actually going to do the cop gone bad kind of cliche. But it was really well done. Scott Shelby deserves to be on a great villains list for the twist, his motive, and it's how uncliche it is. Or if you did the bad route of the game, you can have him get away with it by getting rid of everyone who knows anything. Gotta admit, I haven't seen a detective game in a long time that threw a twist like this at me in years. So I'm kind of hoping that changes in the future. I'm hoping for some studio to give me a new detective game where I can sink my teeth into it. Please. I don't ask for much. Shut up. Now we're going into the digital age for a great villain of cyber terrorism at its finest. The main villain for, 3 of the main games, an overarching villain of the entire series, Dr. Wily from the Mega Man Battle Network series. Yeah, I know Wily's also the villain in the other Mega Man games, but I never played them, and Battle Network was what I loved. Wily being this amazing mastermind of a villain. Very rarely does a villain like this, after appearing in so many games, lose his luster and his schemes. But I do like that they gave him a break every now and then. We went from 1 to 3, and then to the final of 6 of him being the main villain. And he killed it in both. 1 was obviously the weakest one, where he was just getting the core codes in order to access the alpha program. The alpha virus? No, the life virus. And then the third one, when he gathered a whole bunch of new members of World 3 to release the alpha program. And then he appears at the end of number 5 to basically wipe the mind of Dr. Regal, aka his son. And one thing I do love about Wily's character is that it's never like an evolution of a scheme. Like, it's always different things, but with the same end goal. Release the life virus, destroy the world. Release the alpha program, destroy the world and net society. Release the Psy Beasts and basically destroy the real world. And he's always a big threat, always from the shadows, which I do love. But one thing that really got me about him is in the final set of the game, at the final set of number 6, after we defeat the Psy Beasts, he tells us to leave. And while his base is imploding, he accepts his fate. And that's something I love about Wily. Yeah, he's evil, he's maniacal, but when he loses, he loses. He's never a sore loser, and I love that about him. It's been a long time since the Mega Man Battle Network series, and I don't think we're going to see a villain as crazy for revenge or ingenious as Dr. Wily in any Mega Man series for the near future. I'm pretty sure about that. Okay, now we're going out of the way of the funny villains for a bit, or the serious ones, and going into an absolute douche. Watch Dogs 2 is probably the best game in the Watch Dogs series, if you count Bad Blood DLC from the first game being greater than the actual game. But yeah, Watch Dogs 2 is definitely the better game, and I don't know what they were thinking with the direction they went in with Bloodlines. Or Legion. Watch Dogs Legion? Whatever it is. Obviously, I'm talking about the man-bun dick of a character, Dusan Nemec. I gotta give it to this guy. He checks all the boxes when it comes to being an irritating villain. Meeting him at the start of the game and not knowing who he is? Check. Absolutely devious in his schemes? Check. Wearing a man bun like it's going out of style. Okay, to be fair, the man bun was never in style. So, check on that. Absolutely uses the protagonist's schemes against us? Check. Mostly one step ahead of us? Check. Screws us over in a big freaking way? Check. This guy is a genius level. Like, there's another villain on my list later that I've always said is the representation of an average dick. Like, this is someone that could actually exist in the real world, and that's what's terrifying. And Dushan is the second example of that. Being a high-tech billionaire owning the biggest tech company in Silicon Valley and working for Bloom, you know, those fuckers who was a main threat in the first game. This guy is screwing over society behind the scenes in many companies. From having technology be used for a smart home. I was wondering when that joke was going to pop up when I said that. And collecting the data on you to sell to the highest bidder. To implement into the bellwether program, which is basically this high collective amount of data that can be basically used to rig elections, rig stock markets, do all that stuff with him being the driving force of owning it. Not only that, but after the first few missions of the game, he sets us up big time by implementing bots for the DedSec page to download the app to give them processing power. He proved to the other tech giants that we're a threat to buy his security code. So he used us. So it's basically like the Pied Piper, the guy who brought the rats into the city, telling the people, I will get rid of them for you if you pay me, and then drives them out. And also the rigging the elections thing near the end. And also, he kidnapped Wrench and tried to turn him against us. You do not with Wrench. I'm just saying. Dushan eventually gets what he gets in the end. After we take all the data and the bellwether and we release it online. You know what? Marcus said it better.
What happens if you actually answer it this time? Maybe it's Bloom sending you to face the firing squad alone. Or maybe it's your lawyer telling you there's no place to run. Maybe it's just a telemarketer. You really should answer it this time. Whoever it is, you're done fucking people over.
Dushan, again, is the representation of what an actual real-life villain tech giant could be like. But again, this is a video game, so there's probably not going to be someone like that. But with the way the world has been going in the last couple of years, I really hope I'm just making a joke about this. It's very rare when when the Batman takes on unique twists of their villains where it's actually surprising. I mean, I know that Arkham Knight didn't fool a lot of people. I mean, it fooled me because I didn't really know Jason Todd and never really read the comics. But Telltale reworking a character and creating an original villain that isn't an actual villain already, you gotta give them props for that. I am talking about the villain of the Batman Telltale series, Season 1 villain, Lady Arkham, a.k.a. Victoria Arkham, a.k.a. Vicky fucking Vale. We went from her being Bruce's love interest in the movie to being one of his flings in the rest of the Batman series, which, let's be honest, that's great, to being an original villain. Again, credit where credit is due. Telltale really put the springs to me really quickly with this one. Being a victim of the Wayne, and again, in this series, the Waynes were evil, committed people to Arkham to steal their fortune and all that stuff. Yes, seriously, the Waynes are villains in this. Yes. So, and yeah, Victoria Arkham are the ones who were in Arkham Asylum, who worked. But then they didn't like what the Waynes were doing and putting regular people in the asylum. So the Waynes had them committed themselves, which resulted in Victoria going to a foster home. Where... Okay, yeah, if... I'm pretty sure I put a spoiler at the beginning of this video where it's... I'm going to be talking about spoilers, and some of these are about really bad subject matter. I mean, it's never going to go to the super extent, but, yeah, you've been warned. Where she was abused constantly by her foster parents, the Vales. And, she was put in a hole where we find it, and we see the birth of the place of Lady Arkham. And the best thing about Lady Arkham is that it went completely unnoticed by me in the entirety of the game. I mean, at least for the first 3 episodes, because she's revealed to be in the last one, in the 3rd episode at the end. First off, Steve Bloom doing the amazing digital voice for Lady Arkham. Beautiful. Erin Yvette, I think that's her name, who has done a lot of games for Telltale. Great voice for Vicky Vale. Really, really great. The fact that during the first 2 episodes, you can ask her to help you and everything. They really pulled the wool over my eyes. Having her be a victim of her own attack to eliminate all ideas of that, even if they weren't ideas there. And then her big scheme to destroy the Waynes and to release all of Arkham Asylum out into the streets. Collectivating the victims of the Waynes, of people who were sent to Arkham Asylum as her soldiers. It is one of the best takes for an original villain with an existing character that's ever been done in Batman. Any Batman game, any different take on it. It's definitely worth talking about and going over. However, at the end of the game, at the first season, we don't really know the fate of what happened to Victoria. Did she die? Did she escape? We'll never know. And I'm really hoping someone does something with this. Telltale, I know you guys are pressed, and Wolf Among Us 2 and everything, but if you guys have to pick something to do next, Batman 3. I'm just saying. We had a tech giant being a modern day asshole, and now we're going to have a politician being a modern asshole. But with a voice of Keith Silverstein and an absolute medal of a design, and not being the main threat of the entire game, but being the first main threat throughout the game, being somewhat in shadow, only appearing little bits during the story. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the future ruler of Japan, Masayasu Shido, a.k.a. the big bald a-hole from Persona 5. This guy is, without a doubt, one of the best villains I've ever seen in a video game. And again, because of the theme that Persona 5 goes with. Like, he's intimidating in the real world, and we barely see him. We see him once in the flashback of how Ren got to the situation where we are. We see him once at the buffet, at the hotel after we defeat the first palace. We see him talking throughout the background in political videos on TV, and then near the end of the game, we finally see the great mastermind, and he's intimidating beyond belief. And the fact that every single one of the villains in this game are based on the 7 deadly sins, the fact that he is pride really works for a politician. As we go into his own mind, he sees the Diet building, which is the political building in Japan, as a giant cruise liner, and everything around him is submerged in water. Basically saying everything outside of his consciousness is nothing. And everyone on the ship is everyone he deems worthy enough to be around him. From people who can contribute to the campaign, people he can use, all of that. And it's a great doubt of sin of pride. And even his freaking final, and his boss fight is a culmination of it all. And it's beautifully done. Having him wear this general dictator armor with skull armor, and it doesn't change that much of who he is in the reels on the inside. But to have the first stage of his fight have a giant golden lion, which many can attribute to the sin of pride. Thank you very much for that 7 Deadly Sins anime. Having a golden lion being made out of statues of people and him riding on top of it. Basically him having the populace fight for him. Because their lives mean nothing unless he can use them. And then they turn into a giant pyramid. And then, no giant monster form, no nothing. He just destroys his armor and goes mano a mano with us with like bodybuilder metal spring stuff, those weight things that bodybuilders wear. And he goes toe to toe with us. What greater advantage of a sin of pride for a boss fight to be so prideful that you believe you can go mano a mano with someone after everything else. Shido is a great villain. He is one of my favorite villains. He is my favorite villain of Persona 5. And the fact that no matter what he's in, I can't help it. Shido is a great villain. That's all I gotta say. You guys know that laugh. You guys know who it is. The villain, the genius, mastermind, and the arch enemy of the Blue Blur, we have Dr. Ivo Robotnik, a.k.a. Dr. Eggman from the Sonic series. Eggman has been this villain has been a part of my life since I can remember. From playing the old Sega games with my cousin, from playing the Sonic games on my Wii, aka Unleashed, Secret Rings, he wasn't really the villain. I never really played a lot of the old Sonic games, and a lot of people are going to give me slack for that, but he was a villain to me from the Sonic X cartoon. So, a lot of it's for that. But everything I've seen from every other game that I played, Eggman is exactly the same. Okay, to be fair, I did borrow colors from an old friend of mine many years ago. That was fantastic. And this is what I love about Eggman. No matter what his scheme, He's always enjoying himself. He always has fun no matter what scheme he's doing. From capturing small creatures and putting them in robots. And again, his robots are fantastic. I love every single robot he designs, from the games to the show to the movies. Yes, I gotta talk about the movie. Jim Carrey. No one can do a better live action Dr. Eggman. And he just proved it thrice. Hopefully quad, maybe, in the future. But all in all, Dr. Eggman is fantastic. From his design to his personality being the smug, hilarious, evil scientist trying to take over the world by building an Eggman Land theme park. You unleashed an ancient evil sealed in the earth to harness its power to make Eggman Land. That's like if a Power Rangers villain released an ultimate evil just to open up a theme park. For the love of God, please do not let that be the next thing for the next Sentai. Please. We have enough goofy stuff in those already. But again, from Eggman's design to his personality to his constant schemes, no matter how many times the blue blur Sonic takes him out, it's always a joy to see what the next threat is, what his next great scheme is. I just hope he goes away from the over-the-top cartoony stuff and goes to a little bit more threatening stuff. And yes, let's all remember, we forgot what he was in 06. No one should have to remember him as that. From another game I love near and dear to my heart, even though I love the Yakuza series, Yakuza 0 was a great game, my first introduction to the whole generation of that was the spin-off game, Judgment. And the sequel, Lost Judgment, which gave me one of the coolest, most interesting, and intimidating villains that was also somewhat of a twist. From Lost Judgment, we have the leader of RK. We have, I want to say this right, Kazuki Soma. And yeah, the minute I put this image on here, I know some people who are really, really love bad boys are going to really simp for this guy. But from the looks of him, he doesn't look that intimidating. But to be fair, in any Yakuza / any spin-off games of them, anyone who looks normal is more than likely going to be an absolute fucking badass. And, oh my god, Soma was fantastic right from the get-go. Being the leader of an underground group, again, RK, which took in some of the old Yakuza members that after the whole family's disbanded after a couple things happened. He's in the new area, the new city that we are in, looking for an old bully who spontaneously vanished. And again, when we first meet him, he's calm, he's polite. He's going to be an absolute menace later on, isn't he? I can always tell the minute someone is nice to us in the beginning and they're a threat, they're going to be the one that's going to be the most badass. And it shows. Although the one thing I do love about him is that he clarifies something about himself. He's always sniffing into a handkerchief because he's got a dust allergy. But it's not that big of a thing. But it's really interesting the fact that even with that, he's still an absolute badass character. It's a small thing. And the fact that he can always tell when we're lying. That's terrifying. And then after following us and on the trail of the handyman that we met earlier and the whole big scheme surrounding the game, Soma proves to be an absolute menace. In the most terrifying way possible. While on the hunt, he sneaks up behind our friend Kaido and gets him right with a silver knife. And after he does that, he tells us, I never told you what RK stood for, did I? Red knife. And if you got, and like, both of his boss fights are intimidating as fuck. And this isn't a game. The Yakuza series and the Judgment games are not games where if you think a boss is hard, that you can just cheese it. No. You have to put everything you have into these boss fights, or else you're going to be dying a lot. If you're severely underleveled and you haven't unlocked that many combos, combat skills, or anything, you are going to die a lot. From his first fight, to his final boss fight, to his entire presence throughout the game, and every moment he's on screen, he just oozes this charismatic attitude, and he earns it. And the fact that he was a double agent for political security, basically he was an undercover cop. Oh my God, like that put the cherry on the top of this guy. He's intimidating, whether it's a boss fight or a cutscene, no matter what he says. Even if he's being polite towards you, you have this feeling of fear whenever he speaks. And it's a great villain like this that I want in more games. Don't make him constantly monstrous or a sociopath. Just make him suave, sophisticated, have a little bit of manners in him, but at the same time, he will fucking punch you. He'll knee you in the jaw if he needs to. Kazuki Soma, you definitely got on the high part of the list, but there are other villains that literally just nudged you out to being near the top. But again, as far as the Yakuza series spin-off games go, you hold the mantle of one of the best villains. Next up, this villain was near the top of my list like many years ago, but other villains came around and nudged him down a notch. Like I said, I love a good twist villain when I can kind of predict it. But there is a rare occasion where they do shock me and get me, and then I'm pissed off that I never noticed it. Especially when they lay it right in your face, right from the get-go. And this one is about the same level as any Criminal Minds character. If you don't know who I'm talking about, well, let's just say he can capture you in a corner and capture you in a moment of innocence. But that would be too easy. Ha ha ha! It's Mark Jefferson from The First Life is Strange. This twist had me so floored. They made a joke about it right at the get-go, laughed it off, and nobody knew. It's one of those twists that most people would say comes right out of nowhere and doesn't make sense, but it makes sense no matter how many times you want to deny it. A professional and famous photographer for his kind of dark and twisted style, until it's revealed that I'm not sure if it's only Blackwell that he does this, but from the albums and the scenes, we kind of picture that he, with his accomplice, Nathan Prescott, but again, I believe this is more of a Nathan wanted a father figure thing, so Jefferson basically used him to drug the girls at the frickin' school, bring them to the dark room, so he takes photos of them. Not in a actual way like that, unless the nightmare scenes in Max's mind are what he says there are anything to be given. Yeah, it's fucking twisted. And again, I like villains that aren't redeemable. I like evil villains. But this was absolutely right the f*** out of nowhere dark. It's like if you do a movie about Candyland and then there's a psychotic murderer in the licorice swamp. I don't know. It's the only expression. It's the only thing I can make sense. I got nothing else to say about this guy. He's twisted. He's evil. He's unapologetically evil. And I still haven't played Life is Strange Double Exposure yet. And so help me, if he makes an appearance, I swear. Now that I've calmed down a little bit, let's move away from being an absolute evil psychopath and go into a jealous psychopath. From the Uncharted series and our last bout with Nathan Drake, we have the only villain that we actually have to have that we get a great boss fight with. I've talked about him in my great final bosses list, and here he is again. We have Rafe from A Thief's End. This guy, again, is a rich kid who wanted to pursue a treasure all on his own to make something of himself without his parents' say-so. For a child, that seems like an okay thing. For a grown adult, it's a beyond obsession. Rafe contracting... What was the name of their... a militia group as a private army to help him find Captain Avery's long-lost treasure. Sadly, for the last couple of years, he's been at a dead end because he's not good with the historical stuff. So, he works with the Drake brothers in the prologue to discover more for the clues of the treasure's location. Doesn't go very well later on, and then we find him again continuing the search. Rafe is a great villain, because just like Jefferson and Soma, he's got that cool personality where he is a regular person. Yeah, he gets a little annoyed half the time, but he's still intimidating half the time. Also, it kind of helps that he has a fuse that's this big when it comes to being pushed around and for people screwing with him. Again, but great villain nonetheless. He's not a villain that's seeking for an ancient artifact to sell to the highest bidder, or a warmongering monster to become all powerful, or, like I said last year, a absolute terrible British villain. He is a threat all the way through, and it's never indicated that he's going to die later on before we get to the final conflict. And the conflict, again, is great. Burning pirate ship with all the treasure around us, Nate wanting to save Sam. We're locked in. Sword on sword combat that wasn't done anywhere else in the game. Wow, Rafe comments that he's had to listen about Drake's success through all these years. The desert, the city in the desert, Shambhala, El Dorado, and Nathan Drake is a legend. You know, he shot the guy who told him all that. Being pissed off with all of Drake's success, even though Drake is nothing, and this guy's a rich kid, and he can't comprehend that someone of Drake's caliber grew up basically from nothing. And then he had the nerve to insult both the Drake brothers, Sully and Elena. But he got what he wanted in the end. He wanted the treasure, so Nathan gave it to him. In one of the best quick death scenes in a video game. It's not done off screen. It's not done by something stupid. This is an actual great final scene for the whole Thief's End. And for any of you who haven't played the game yet, shame on you. Again, Rafe, a great villain. for a great ending, for a great legacy of a series. Yeah, like I wasn't going to have this guy at the top, near the top of my list. I love the Koopa King. I really do. But how many times can you fail? Like when it comes to video game villains, Bowser has failed almost all the time. And that's why the Mario and Luigi series gave us some brand new villains to breathe some fresh air into the series. And from that laugh, for any of you who know, it's the Green Menace himself. He will have Chorlets. He will have the beef of victory. He will have fury. It is Fawful from the Mario and Luigi series. This guy is insanity in a green packaging with swirly eye glasses. Fawful became one of my favorite characters in the entire Mario and Luigi series alone because of how amazing he was. Okay, to be fair, my first introduction to him was the side stuff of Partners in Time. Yeah, I never played Superstar Saga. I ain't going to, because watching it, it looks like a slog. Not disrespecting any fans of the game. I'm just saying my own personal opinion. But to be the main villain of Bowser's Inside Story, oh my God, his insanity, but he's a genius. And those two things kind of go hand in hand. But this is a culmination of them on steroids with a little bit of hot sauce added to it. Everything he says makes no goddamn fucking sense. And not just because, unlike the Shroobs, they do it in this weird text language and everything, but everything he says, it's on point, but it makes zero sense half the time because of the words and the metaphors he uses. But what makes Fawful a great villain is, again, he's insane. He's actually insane. Aside from the mass murdering, he is basically the Mario version of Joker. Completely insane. Has genius level intellect despite his insanity. Always has fun with our heroes and Bowser because of the whole game. But what gets him so high on my list, other than his personality-wise and his boss fights? But again, I never played Superstar Saga, so I can't comment on that one, but from looking at it, it's not his best. But his two boss fights in Bowser's Inside Story, being in his dark form, which is absolutely beautiful, and I love the boss fight itself, to being a part of the final boss with Dark Bowser and Fawful Core, again, which is amazing. The boss fights are immaculate. With it, he caused the Blorp incident that had all of them the toads puff up. He got Bowser to absorb almost everyone in the castle. Starlo, Princess Peach, Toadsworth, the Mario Bros, which weakened him. Tossed him out into the caves. Sent out his entire fossilized army throughout the Mushroom Kingdom, mind-controlled the Monty Moles, the elite trio squad of Bowser's Elite Guard, brainwashed most of Bowser's minions, took over Bowser Castle with Midbus's help, was able to kidnap Princess Peach, release the Dark Star, power it up, turn Peach's castle into a giant fucking robot, almost succeed with his scheme, and he did all of this by him, okay, aside from Midbus, by himself. Because Cackletta was gone, he was most likely exiled from the Bean Kingdom for the attempted coup him and Cackletta did. He stayed underground the Peach's castle for a while, plotting his scheme. If that isn't amazing of how great Fawful is, I can't help you. He's number 3 on the list because he has Charlottes. But there are 2 villains that outweigh him. In a big shock, what was number 1 on my original villains list is now the second banana on the list. Had to notch him down. Like I said, representation of a modern day asshole that could most likely be a threat nowadays. A rich guy uses people, basically doesn't pay them after telling them to do jobs, threatens people on a daily basis, screws us over more times than I can really count, forces us to have a choice of killing 2 of our friends. Actually, you know what? One of them, actually. Yeah, one of them. And also has a private militia. And worst of all, much like Dushan Nemec, this guy's a yogi. The big asshole from Grand Theft Auto 5, Devin motherfucking Weston. Like I said, representation of a modern asshole. He's a rich prick who has way too much power for his overinflated ego, has us doing jobs for him that we don't get paid for. And then, because we screw with him out of making the movie lot into condos by refusing to screw it over, he sends out a hit squad to Michael's family. Dude, there's overreacting to a situation, and then there's what you've done. So, yeah, no wonder everyone who has a brain cell does the death wish option. And just taking out his own guard in his own house, kidnapping him, and bringing him to be defeated is one of the best moments of the game. And the fact, even while in a trunk, he tries to bribe Trevor. Are you insane? You saw what this guy does and what he did to your personal guards. You really think while he's driving you, while you're in a trunk, you think bribing this guy is going to get you out of this? Devin, dude, you're an idiot. You're an idiot right there. Like, you can't reason with insanity. It's like if a thug offered Joker money to not dip him in acid. Joker will just take the fucking money and burn you anyway. It's exactly what Trevor would do. Actually, I'm surprised there wasn't a scene where Trevor actually did that. But yeah, Devin Weston, great villain. One of the only ones in the game that was actually a threat. Because one of them was a minor threat. One of them was barely in it, like, for 5 minutes. And the other one was a real a-hole, but we all knew he was going to get what was coming to him in the end. So, yeah. But all of these 12 villains alone would be fantastic on a great list. But there is one villain that has been a fan favorite of mine since 2005. Whereas some of these villains have been around for a lot of my childhood, about 2 of them. And all the others came out when I was in high school and college. This one's been around since before I was I was a teenager during 2005. Yeah, mind slipped a little bit. But this villain has been with me for so long. He had very little subject in the main game. you know what? I just got to do it right now. Did you guys think I was going to tell you upright of who it was? As if, for those of you who know, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Xigbar, a.k.a. Bragg, a.k.a. Lushu from the Kingdom Hearts series. Yes! I finally get to talk about Xigbar in all his glory. I mean, I could do twists. I could talk about video game twists in this new year. You know what? Okay. Xigbar, by far, right at the get-go, became my favorite character in Kingdom Hearts 2. Right there. From when he first appeared to us with his hood, taunting us, basically saying, like, oh my God, I have so many things to say, I don't want to spend so long. So basically, no matter what Xigbar said throughout Kingdom Hearts 2, it sounded like he knew a lot more than other characters would. I mean, he wasn't second in command. No, Syax was second in command. Yeah. But Xigbar just taunting us with crap, saying, you're not half the hero the others were. That's right. You used to give me the same look on your face. Every threat, every comment towards Sora had this aura of smugness and overconfidence. But when he first said that you used to give me the same look, first off, I thought he was talking about Roxas. Let's get that out of the way right now. And then when he reveals his full design, it's this awesome looking eye patch dude with a scar, with silvery hair, with a ponytail, with this awesome attitude. And then years later, I found out he's a guy in one of my mom's soap operas, James Patrick Stewart. Great voice actor, fantastic villain, and appears in a lot of crime shows. But Xigbar, God damn it. From every aspect of him, from his amazing, badass boss fight. Let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen. The minute we got to the world that never was in Kingdom Hearts 2, the minute we fought Bragg, we knew the boss fights had been cranked up to the 11. The way he warps around the field, using his arrow guns, to his badass undodgeable attack, to his death scene, and then in 358 Days Over 2, we get a little inkling of him commenting about everything that's going on, from Xion to Roxas to seeing Ventus or whatever this guy was in the flash in the cutscene with Xion. Why do you give me that same look? To him being burnt by sleep, and again, being a great villain. We find out how he got the scar and everything, and his whole freaking attitude. To his final boss fights with Aqua. And his boss fight with Terra, which was amazing. To him being in Dream Drop distance, again, constantly being snarky to Sora. To Kingdom Hearts 3, appearing at Olympus, and taunting us. And then those secret cutscenes we get in the DLC. And then again, still talking like he knows more than he should. And then after his final defeat, basically says Xehanort was gonna give him his Keyblade. Why else would I go through all of this? And then he teleports himself up to the ledge. He falls, and then his arrow guns disappear. And then, after all of this, we get the final ending of Xehanort's Keyblade falling and this hooded figure picking it up. And then the four seers appear out of nowhere and saying, "Is that you, Lushu?" And then it's Zigbar! Basically, the one who was sent off on a secret mission by the Master of Masters was Zigbar, which means he gave the Keyblade to Xehanort and stuck with him for all those years. Actually, no, not even that. Not even that. Because Xehanort found Braig in Radiant Garden. Braig went along with his whole scheme. Everything played out how Zigbar, Braig, Lushu, whatever we want to call him now, went. Everything went the way he could have ever foreseen. The fact that he was a great villain on his own within the organization was one thing. Being a great boss fight was great. Reappearing and constantly taunting us with information he shouldn't know and in other cutscenes, that's another thing. But to be the mastermind behind the entire Kingdom Hearts series, well, not mastermind, but the one who set in motion everything that happened, and the fact he was my favorite character from Kingdom Hearts 2, all of that just immenses how amazing he is. Oh my God. Zigbar. Dude, if you're not in the next game, and if you aren't given one of the biggest, baddest boss fights ever, I don't know what to say anymore. Ladies and that is why, all of these reasons, all of my ranting, why Zigbar is my #1 video game villain, Redux version. God damn it. And that's it for this video, ladies and gentlemen. I really hope you enjoyed the list. And what a way to start off the new year. Like, comment, subscribe down below. What villains from video games do you guys think have been on the list? But I mean, it's my opinion. But what are some of your favorite video game villains that I didn't talk about? So, ladies and gentlemen, join me next week, where I try not to laugh again for the new year in one of my favorite videos. This is Gamer K, logging out.